pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd. She's not here yet. Councilmember McPartland.
Here.
And Councilmember Nunn.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. We'll go ahead and move right into item 5, the presentation by Mr. Kilgore. Mr. Kilgore.
Thank you. So I tried to put together a summation and a very brief PowerPoint of what the American Rescue Plan Act allows and what it disallows. So of course the City Council has set these workshops, to give the public a chance to speak towards the intent, the funding and possibilities. I'm going to go over a general overview, and then I'll stress the restrictions on the funding, and then get into the eligible use categories. So we want to hear suggestions on how the monies can be spent. I guess at a later point in time, the City Council will get or entertain, some more specifics about, from the results of these hearings on what we might want to consider. So, this is the whole intent, is to get the public's input. By the way, we did run an ad in the newspaper advertising these hearings, and of course, it's in the, those that follow the City Council meetings would have been aware of it. So the legislation talks about the intent of the funding is for temporary assistance to government agencies and other select groups to, give help with the economic effects and the impacts from the pandemic. So in general, they intend that the monies be used for projects that would have a long-term impact and be sustainable without new operating costs. They stress that they would like to see the funds expended on projects that address inequities and disparities in services or facilities that are provided to certain segments of the population, figuring that those that in the lower income groups and disadvantaged areas, would be affected mostly by the pandemic, and they wanted the monies to help towards that end, towards assistance. The total bill was to cost $350 billion. The state's got $195 billion of those funds. The county was given $65 billion, as well as the cities were also allocated little typo there, but also $65 billion. Our share of it was $3,332,127. We did receive half of that right after the act was initially approved back in May of 2021. We're scheduled to get this coming May then the second half of those funds. The funds are supposed to be to cover any eligible costs that were incurred between March 3rd and December 31st, 2024. So we must obligate the monies by December 31st, 2024, and completely pay for the monies by December 31st of 2026. So when they say obligated, that doesn't mean just put it in the budget for a future expenditure or in the capital program. It has to actually be paid out by December of 2026 and either have a contract or a PO actually before December 31st of 2024. They specifically say you cannot use the money in certain ways. One, you can't use it for any kind of pension deposits, any kind of debt service, or just to replenish your reserve funds. They also have provisions buried in the rules that you cannot cut taxes basically and supplant those lost revenues with the American Rescue Plan Act funds. They say in the act that we have to submit detailed reports on how we're spending the money. In their final rules, they have put us in a category where we don't actually have to file our first report until the end of April of this year. And then I believe it's going to be annually after that for our size city and the amount of funding that we received. 4 basic categories that the funds can be used for. The first one is the COVID emergency response efforts. The second one is for premium pay to essential workers. The third one is the recovery of lost revenues. And the fourth are certain infrastructure projects that are defined. So I'm going to go into and cover each one of these areas individually. The COVID emergency response is kind of like the CARES Act money that we had. That is, if you're spending the funds for things that are specifically related to dealing with the pandemic, and some of the items here is to buy safety equipment, provide for vaccination programs, mental health services, rental assistance for seniors or low-income housings, for those that are facing eviction, and grants to small businesses, nonprofits, or impacted industries. So that is kind of wide open, but there are a lot of intricacies in the write-up of the regulations. You have to be very careful that you're addressing a class of beneficiaries and not just picking and choosing particular circumstances of an individual. So, premium pay to essential workers, they recognize in the act that that certain workers, the healthcare workers is an example that would be most exposed and most subject to the detrimental effects of the pandemic. One item, it includes grants to third parties, so some of the funds could be given to those agencies, for instance, that operate clinics or healthcare facilities. In other words, to pay those people or those employees through their employer to help, assist them. There are limits as far as the amount, the maximum amounts that can be paid. This category, I intentionally have a slide to show some strikeouts because, just to digress for a minute, the initial rules that they issued back in April of this last year was 137 pages, very complicated reading. Wasn't a lot of fun going through that. But just a few weeks ago, they came out and they called these the interim final rules. So you can imagine why we were kind of hesitant to come out and say this is how the money should be spent at that time. Well, the final rules went from 131 pages initially to now 437 pages. So I can't count the number of times I've read back through this and thinking I missed something or whatever. I made a few tabs, thinking about some of the areas that would be that I would most expect. And it's still complicated. One thing they did do on the one category of general revenue losses, to recover your losses, they had a formula in the initial rules. It was so complicated that I didn't know whether our amount that could be spent under that category would be like $1 million or maybe $657,000. And it was something I would be urging you to stay away from that category and not be subject to the U.S. Treasury Department coming back 5 or 10 years from now and saying, well, you misspent the funds, now you need to pay us back. You know, we've dealt with FEMA in the past, and to me, this is entrapment, just like some of the FEMA programs are. So the final rules, however, said that if you are receiving less than $10 million overall, then you can use it for general essential governmental services, which is what you could have used it under the formula as well, but at least now we have no exposure to miscalculating on what share that can be applied under that category. So we could basically use all the money under this general revenue loss category and not go into the COVID type expenditures or the premium pay for employees or the next category, which is infrastructure expenditures. So the fourth category was special infrastructure projects. They specifically mentioned in the rules that we could use the funding for improving access to clean drinking water, supporting wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. It still appears to me that the projects that are selected in the water and wastewater areas at least would have to be the same, under the same criteria as funding would be obtained from the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund eligible program. They specifically mentioned expanding broadband internet access. And this was due to the concept that the disadvantaged folks wouldn't have broadband, wouldn't be able to get on the computer to do the learning from the broadcast from the schools. It also mentions the affordable housing programs. And you could direct the monies to a privately funded program, but they would basically have to be serving the disadvantaged groups. So that's my concern as the Chief Financial Officer, is that we do things that are certainly within the rules and not subject to being exposed to having the Treasury come back and say that we needed to pay them back. So should be a sustainable type project and not increase future operating costs. And at this point, I would say we wanted to just open it up to questions or thoughts or any kind of clarification we can give today.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hopefully everyone was able to follow that, and so they can understand fully exactly what we can spend this money on and what we cannot spend this money on. Council, I think these workshops are great for getting information from the public, so I think we'll just go ahead and go on to the public and see if there's anyone from the public that has any questions or comments they would like to make. After you, Mr. Dodd.
Mayor, I just want to apologize for being late. I was in Port St. Lucie at a League of Cities meeting, and I forgot that Port St. Lucie is not Sebastian when it comes to traffic.
You are forgiven. You are forgiven, sir.
I agree. Public first.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue?
Good afternoon, Council. Susan LaRusso, Joy Haven Drive. I worked for the city from October 2002 to January 2016. During that time, we had that extreme recession. and I could speak as a former employee, first thing the city manager at the time did was come to us and say, so we don't cut anything, we're going to need you to contribute to your health plan. And I have to say, it wasn't a big contribution compared to people in private sector. Everybody said, okay, fine. Then he came and said, can't give raises, we're going to do a pay freeze, so I don't fire anybody, so everybody keeps their job. And we said, fine. Then came the furlough days. 1 day a month. You didn't have to come into work, but you also didn't get paid for it. That lasted quite a while. And although they did say you could take it whenever, so a lot of people would take it to extend a 3-day weekend type thing, things started to get better. Economy's getting better, taxes are rolling in now, and I will never forget, and I'm not going to say which council person said it, but when they said, we can take away the furlough days, you could go back to your 5 days a week, it was presented as if we were getting a raise. The city employees have been through a lot, and I didn't work here during the pandemic. I can just imagine what they must have been going through with your clothes, you're open, you're masked, you're not masked. I really, really, really would appreciate, I know there's a big laundry list of projects that could get done in the city, and it needs to be done, but please don't forget your employees. They really, really could deserve a little boost during this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we're going to ask that we don't have applause because it's part of our rules, and the reason we don't do applause is because there will be people on either side of the issue, and we want all comments to come forward, so we want to make sure that people are comfortable if they even have an opposing view to that. So we're just going to keep the applause to a 0 if we could. It's part of our rules, and I think it's a good rule. That way everyone's voice is heard, and no one has to be concerned about getting up. Anyone else wish to speak this afternoon? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Graham Cox, and I live at 1213 George Street in Sebastian. I don't have specific projects that you could consider, but I do have some priority ideas that you really can investigate, and I'll get to how to do that in a second. I've done some surveys of many things in the county dealing with quality of life issues, and I look at the list that Mr. Kilgore has put up there, and I see things to do with medical services, things to do with mental health services, might be included in the medical services or could be specific. Issues to do and projects to do with food security, especially things for kids programs. And one of the things on the list up there was affordable housing. I'd like to see you spend money on the stormwater plan projects, but I don't think that's anywhere near the kind of priority that you get from these human services. And my suggestion as to how to go about choosing projects or finding projects is, I see in there that there's a way you can spend money on a part-time employee up to $25,000. And so I'm going to suggest that you hire a project manager part-time for that amount and ask that person to go to the agencies, go to the both non-profit and public agencies, and say, what would you need to operate in Sebastian? I know there's a lot of agencies that serve all sorts of needs in this county, but you need somebody on your staff who can put together essentially more than a wish list. That is a list of specific kinds of projects. And that's all my suggestions for priorities. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Anyone else this afternoon? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Bill Simmons, Sebastian, and I have a couple of thoughts. I lean more towards the infrastructure, with our drainage problems and so forth, and I think we should gear these funds more towards who would gain the most, who it would benefit. And I think in the infrastructure side of it, it would affect many, many, many households in the city of Sebastian. I do know there's been a study going on, and there has in the past, but this is something that could benefit all of Sebastian, period, not just 15, 20, 30, whatever. Everyone would, I think, share in the benefits of the infrastructure. I do also have another question. For example, on your agenda tonight, on your item 8H, where you have on there, approve the purchase of a John Deere mini excavator.
Sir, we're speaking specifically on the issues that are on the agenda here, not the council meeting tonight.
I was just questioning why would that not be covered by this?
Okay, that's fine.
And it's part of the infrastructure.
Okay.
Because that's what it's related to.
Future purchases.
So why use your normal funds when you could use that?
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else wish to speak this afternoon? Yes, sir.
In a presentation that was just given,
Sir, I need your name and where you live, please.
Don Sandos, 722 Yearling Trail.
Thank you very much.
Now, so the presentation that was just given about money being used. Now, raises or bonus is a one-time thing. Would that fit the category?
Well, the bonuses would for those individuals who were required to be working here during the pandemic and those times. A bonus would be allowed under this, the use of this money. Yes, sir.
Okay, question two.
Raises would not.
Pardon me?
But raises would not, but bonuses would.
Okay, the second question I have, Governor DeSantis, in his bill, he is proposing to give $1,000 bonus for all first responders. That's is his coming up bill. If that passes, I would not like to see the town giving another bonus on top of what the governor gave.
Okay.
I mean, and the third thing, the money being spent on some major projects would help the city on the tax base. So there's only so much money to go around and get divvied up and everything else, and hopefully it pans out right. But hopefully you just consider what the governor's going to do too.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And all of this money is, I guess, government money, but it's the people's money because tax dollars come from the people in the community. So these dollars are your dollars to spend. So that's why we're here to try to figure out exactly the best way to do that. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken McDonough. I am the PBA rep for Sebastian. Also, not necessarily a PBA complete issue, but I wanted to talk on behalf of the first responders of this city and the employees, the essential workers. I know there's 400 plus pages of things with the rescue plan that are hard to get through or wrap your head around or understand who was affected by the pandemic. Obviously, everyone was. So some of the things that I've looked into is that the people that deserved it were individuals, right? Individuals that met the criteria that the Act says that they would give money to, right? Or businesses that were affected that the Act would give money to, well deserved. Infrastructure is a huge part of the Act. Now, also, the amount of money that the city received was not only from the Biden Rescue Act, but also what took place earlier with Trump's. So we've listened to the numbers and how much millions there are. And I see that it's important to compensate the people that need to be compensated, like some of the people I just said. Now, the individual that just came up before me mentioned that there was a $1,000 bonus given by DeSantis. I don't believe that because DeSantis was, for better lack of a term, wise enough to realize that he wanted to compensate the workers and the essential workers and first responders throughout Florida that had to deal with this along with everybody else. This is for the city. I don't think saying that because DeSantis decided to recognize this, that doesn't mean that the money, the millions that were given to the city, shouldn't also be recognized for the people that were here, first responders and employees. So a little bit about that is, without the first responders being here, you got to remember when this first started over a year and a half ago, when we were here, we didn't know, nobody knew what we were dealing with when we went into people's homes. When we assisted EMS with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, when we dealt with people that were dying and we needed to do what we always did, or we had to put our hands on someone that was a criminal that did something that we were protecting from the city. We couldn't call our supervisors and say, hey, I'm not coming in today because I'm afraid of what's going to take place. We did not have that option. I could not work from home. My brothers could not work from home. So we had to do what we always did without knowing what would happen to us. We had to go to the prisons, the jails. We had to go to the hospitals. We had to put people in our car just a foot behind us that we didn't know what they had or what was going to happen to us. Now you may say, well, that's your job, you picked that. Well, yes, we did. But knowing that we still had to do what we had to do. People could go home at that point in time. People could stay home and try to protect themselves. We couldn't. Yes, it's our job. So I feel that hundreds of agencies across the country have allotted some of that money, which we already saw could be given, right? The federal government said it could be given to first responders and employees who are essential. As a matter of fact, I think it was second or third on the list. So we didn't come and argue or come to the city manager and say, we want this. Actually, the city manager decided that he understood that part of this should be for the people that were here for the city, the people that protected the city when we didn't know what was happening. We were here for them and we had no choice. At one point, every single member of the Detective Bureau had COVID. We were home. The deputy chief was trying to handle cases on DB back last January. We brought it home to our families. We had no choice. We brought it to our families, we brought it to our parents, because this is what we do. This is our job. This is what we were sworn to do. I have to give credit to the city manager that he decided that some of this money, and I don't have the exact percentage, but I think it's about 12% of the whole entire money from the first million that was received, or just shy of $1 million, the city received under Trump, and the money after that. Just a small part. And he said that he wanted to recognize what we did, the sacrifices that we made. I'm not trying to say that.
About 30 seconds, wrap it up.
Okay, I'm not trying to say that nobody else deserves this stuff. I've already said where that money is going, and it should go there. I just feel that it is deserved for the people that put their basically their lives on the line to protect the city. That's all.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, ma'am. We'll go back here and then I'll come up here. Please come forward.
Hi, Andrea Ring, 407 Query Lane. I understand where the city employees are coming from because there have been hard times everywhere. I was a contractor I was not allowed to work my 40-hour week. I had to work a 32-hour week and take an 8-hour cut. People in my Sunday school classes were taking pay cuts to keep their jobs. This is a long time ago. But it is a fact of what the economy is. We don't need, I think, to support the pay raises for our city employees. I would go with Dr. Cox and try to get and move forward with a project that will help the city move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
I'm John Denise. I've been a Sebastian resident for almost 40 years. I'm listening to what 400 pages changes at the end. I think that you gentlemen have a tough job ahead of you, and everybody, including me, are biased. We all have our biased views. I now sit on the Park and Rec. I think the people in that department are the most special people in the world. Everybody that sits in other places think those people are the special people. So I just think that, I don't know who's critical. I think we're all critical. I've sat on many boards during my 80 years, during my almost 40 years in Sebastian. I believe that at some point in your life you have to give back to your community. But I will tell you, I have yet to meet, and I'm sure there are some, anybody that worked in the city of Sebastian that hasn't been cooperative and who I think are special people. But God bless you. You have your job in front of you. This is unusual for me in the last year to speak well of Sebastian because I like the way Sebastian used to be. I don't want to have more people come in, but we are a special community, and you're doing a heck of a job, and I don't envy what you're doing now. You're not going to satisfy everybody, and don't worry about it. Just do what has to be done.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service, sir. Anyone else have any comments to make this afternoon? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Detective Mason. Obviously, City of Sebastian employee, City of Sebastian resident for the past 5 years. First of all, I want to say thank everyone for being here today and taking the time out of your schedule to accommodate this meeting for today and this evening. I want to thank Mr. Carlisle and the team for putting this all together. I want to thank you for another great presentation. We love your slideshows. Okay. The one thing I just want to say is I want to reiterate what Detective McDonough had to say. When you look at essential workers, we were here through all this. We had no idea, well, no one did, what was going to happen. At one time, yes, we all were sick. I brought it home to my wife. I brought it home to my 12-year-old daughter. We suffered through that, and thank God we got through it. But not at one point in time was service to this community ever affected by the men and women who work next door. We give 110% every day. And we did it through the pandemic, and we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it the next day, and the following day. So I'm proud to say that the members of the City of Sebastian, I greatly appreciate the thought of a hazard bonus. I want to call it a payout. I want to say it's a hazard pay. Premium pay. Yes, thank you. Premium pay for what we did and what we will continue to do, regardless of what tomorrow brings. But we are here to support this town. I live here. I know stormwater is an issue. I pay my taxes, so I'm good with, allocating the money. But I do like to see the men and women next door who would take care of with what we've proposed. I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate the service to the community. And you guys did all of that because you're awesome.
Thank
You guys are amazing, and I don't think there's any question that all 5 of us up here feels that way. We're very proud of the police force we have. We're proud of all of the employees that we have in this city. So thank you very much for what you did, gotten us through that pandemic. I think you guys are amazing. All right.
Are we through the pandemic?
We're not, well, please. That ended last November, I think, didn't it?
I don't know, ever.
I don't know. I think I'll be in trouble there. That's okay. Anyone else wish to bring something forward? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Hanley, 775 Holden Avenue, Sebastian. I just have questions as far as where this money is distributed. I think that when kids were virtual, there was a good portion of our student population that did not have access to internet services. And I think that pre-pandemic, endemic, whatever comes next, it's very, very important that all our students have the same availability to connectivity, not only through daily school work, but also homework and research and stuff. I think that's a priority that's not available to a lot of communities here or neighborhoods. I have a concern with all the new development in the city of Sebastian that any infrastructure would be used for existing problems, not future roads to accommodate the hundreds of houses that are being built. So yes, stormwater is a big issue, has been an issue for a number of years. I think my only suggestion is that we look at the problems that we had and how we can fix it instead of the future development for new real estate houses and businesses and stuff like that. Let's fix what was broken, and let's not use this, hey, we have $3.3 million so we can expand, because while I've only been a resident here in Sebastian for 12 years, I came from South Florida, don't yell at me. I really do see our area not maintaining the city of Sebastian way of life. I still wave to everybody that I pass, and I'd like to really see that stay the same. A lot of people moving in from different areas, they love it, but are we keeping our same mentality? And that's what really frightens me. And also, as far as the low income, the money going to people who are in fear of losing their residence over the past couple of years, that is a real reality. We have no place, we have no inventory. Median income price for Indian River County, $349,000 for a home. There's people who can't even afford rent to stay where they are because landlords are escalating the prices because there's such a demand. So the people who have been here for a while, maybe we can figure out some way to give some assistance. So I'm really trying to stay the course. And of course, first responders, you didn't have a choice. And I applaud each and every one of you for all the work. And also, I applaud Publix and Winn-Dixie and Walmart, because they were stocking toilet paper for months, you know. So I don't know if that's something, but that's my feeling. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I agree with very much a lot of what you said, and anyone who basically wasn't here in 1926 when the city was incorporated is a part of the problem. Most of us are transplants from somewhere, and I do enjoy walking down the street on the riverfront and waving to folks and seeing our police officers wave and smile as they drive by. So we do all agree that we want to keep Sebastian a wonderful place to live. Anyone else at this 1 o'clock meeting? Yes, ma'am.
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
I just want to remind everybody, this is the opportunity. Don't walk away from here today saying, wow, I really wish I would have got up and said this. Please get up and talk if you have something to say.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Deborah Magruder. I'm a record specialist for the City of Sebastian Police Department, and I also do dispatch. My thing is, as a civilian employee, we handle lots of paper in my office. Everything the officers turn in, we handled. Everything the public bring in, we handled. So we were constantly in active view of getting COVID. Thank God I didn't get it, and our office did not mean to get it, but there's a lot of people who did in our office. Right now, today, I've got two people in my office out with it. So, I mean, it's really hard to continue to maintain what we do. I'm the only one in the office. I was supposed to be off Monday. I came in Monday. Canceled my day off. I don't want to say this, but a lot of people have people at home with issues, medical issues. My husband does, and I didn't take it home to him, thank God, because he has COPD. What if I took it home to him and he died? I mean, it's hard because I have to come into work every single day and putting my life on the line and his life on the line. I have custody of my granddaughter. Yeah, she was home for school, homeschooled. I worked. My husband homeschooled. I homeschooled in the afternoon. The 1 month I did get to work from home, and it was only 1 month, I worked a full-time job at home, and I homeschooled my granddaughter and took care of my household. It's hard. We all know it was hard at that time, but we maintained and we got through it. Because the police department, they are great people. They're my family, as well as my husband and my granddaughter. And all I'm asking is that you guys take into consideration of what we all did, even as civilians, to give us a chance to at least give us a little bit of something. Because we put our lives on the line and our families' lives on the line every single day. And I'm doing it again today. So I'm just wanted to thank you for your time and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right, that's awesome. And we don't have Zoom going today, do we?
We do. There's only one person who does not have their hand raised.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate the comments from everybody in here. And you know, it's like they were all very constructive and good comments. Some of the comments about, you know, what we went through during the recession, that was very difficult. And I was up here during that time. And I remember a lot of the difficult decisions that were made, the hard decisions and the difficulties that the employees had to go through. And I know the employees aren't back 100% from those times. And, you know, there's a lot of people in the country that are not. And this council has decided that we're going to deal with those issues, some of those issues with pay rates. We're dealing with those issues. We've got a study out, and we're going to, and when that study is done, we're going to go ahead and deal with the five of us, or whoever's up here when that's done, are going to deal with the discrepancy, if there is, in the pay rates and the benefits. So all of those things are going to be dealt with. I, for one, can say that I appreciate every employee that we have in the city of Sebastian. I love our police officers. I think you guys do one hell of a job. I'm so proud of you. I think that you guys are the class of all departments. And I don't say that with any trepidation. For me, it's fact. I never see a police officer that's not smiling and waving and willing to help in our community. And yes, that's your job, but I think in Sebastian, you guys do it better than most. And that doesn't stop with the employees of the city. I believe that the employees of the city are a family, and they care about this community and want to make sure that this community is well taken care of. So I appreciate all the comments that we got tonight. And now I guess we'll talk a little bit amongst ourselves. But I would look forward to our 5 o'clock also to gather some information, and then we can, I suppose, give some direction. Yes, sir. Mr. Dodd.
I just want to ask a question of Ken. I was not aware that these funds are coming from multiple pieces of legislation. Exactly where is this money? What legislation is the pool of funds we're talking about?
Yeah, this was a special legislation that was actually approved last March.
Okay, this is what was proposed in February or so and approved in March.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. There's not any
It's not to be confused.
holdover money from early COVID.
No, and we had the CARES Act funding. In fact, we're still getting some CARES Act funding for our airport.
Yeah.
But you know, our program for the city, the CARES Act is over.
We've already used all
We
that.
don't have any other funds coming from that program. But this is all American Rescue Plan Act.
Right. And the American Rescue Plan's giving us roughly a total of about $3.2 million, and we've got half of that now.
Half in the
and
bank.
We'll get the other half.
Should be about May.
Yeah, and they have, if I understand it right, they have recently extended the time frame you have to use those funds. Is that not correct?
That, not to my
Used to be
knowledge.
you had to have them,
No,
you had to
the-
have it used in like 12 months or 18 months or something
The
like
deadline
that.
is December of 2024
Okay, I thought
to
they
actually
had-
spend the money.
Okay, all right, so we have to use it by December of 2024, so
Well,
any,
I should say obligated by December
okay,
of 2024.
obligated. So any money that we put into infrastructure, for example, would it be wise for us to put that into projects that are done prior to that time?
You want to at least have a valid contract or a purchase order issued
Okay.
by December 24th of
I mean, I just
2024.
hate for Uncle Sam, because you know how he is, when he puts out 500 pages of rules, he's gonna put out 500 pages of I want it back if you don't do it right. I would hate for him to.
We've
try to
had
come
that
back and
experience,
take it.
yes.
Amen to that.
Actually, that'll be 700 pages.
Yeah, all right, that'll be 700 pages when they do that, okay. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was understood that correctly. I also want to parrot what Mayor Hill said. I don't want to say that the police department is better than the rest of the employees.
I didn't say that.
But all of our
Didn't say that. I
employees are
said they're
great.
better than any other PD.
Okay.
Let's be clear.
Now, all of our employees are great, and I have a great respect for our entire police department, not just the uniformed officers, but the civilian officers and the civilians in the police department as well, and great respect. And I fully anticipate that we will attempt to do what we can to assist them through this process with these funds. So I can't make any promises, but I can tell you that I think that we will definitely do what we can to assist through this process with the first responders. I'm slightly disappointed the definition that they finally put on first responders, because it does stop us from assisting some employees who probably went just as far out of the way as some of our first responders did, and we don't have we're probably not going to be able to do something with that because they changed that definition and made it stricter. But I think we'll do something with that. I mean, I would love to see something done with that, so that's my comments.
Yeah, so I would like to ask Mr. Kilgore a question, and actually, it's funny that it slightly relates to what Councilmember Dodd just said. So it says essential workers with in-person interactions or regular handling of items handled by others. So that's a pretty wide definition, because I'm just gonna pick on one person. I'll pick on the mayor's secretary the city manager's secretary for a second. Yeah, you don't have a secretary. His administrative assistant. So as well as she doesn't go out into the wild, she does interact with people constantly that are going out in the wild, outside of this building. So does that position count under what that's saying?
Well, think about a 437-page document. As you read in one section, you think, well, if somebody is exempt from the FMLA as far as overtime, in other words, salaried people, you'd think, no, they couldn't be covered. But as you go further back into the pages and you delve into it, for city workers, if they aren't exempt from overtime, in other words, they're salaried personnel, the chief executive officer, the city manager, can write a reasoning as to why they should still be getting whatever premium pay is decided on.
Okay, so there's a little
So it is
flexibility.
wide open as far as, and it puts it on him, I guess, to make judgments whether he wants to put in writing and, distinguish between some employees that maybe were more involved, that they were on site, they were handling customers, or they were out doing building inspections, for instance.
We got
They're
Parks
not
and Rec
public
people.
safety. I mean, they are public safety in my view, but they're not law enforcement.
Right. I mean, Parks and Rec and Public Works people who are out interacting with the public constantly on a daily basis. So, okay,
Yes,
understood.
so the way the final act reads, and I can point to actual sentences in the act that would justify that and be able to support that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Down the road.
On nothing for you. On the broadband internet, I do want to mention, because I think it's important, And it's for anybody that's listening or knows somebody who can't afford internet. Comcast offers an affordable connectivity program called Internet Essentials. It's a high-speed internet. It's free. You have to qualify for the program, which probably is something similar to qualifying for food stamps or something like that. But it is free high-speed internet available to anybody that can't afford it. You just have to go through the application process. And from what I understand, it's not an awful one. But I offer that as for anybody who does need that kind of assistance. So as far as obviously first responders and the employees that are out there dealing with this every day, obviously I'm a very big supporter. I think we need to find a way to take care of those employees. I think we need to find a way to do it. Obviously, pay raises are not an option because that would be a recurring cost, but some sort of a bonus could. As I say that, we also talk about the infrastructure. Anything we spend. So one other question, can something we spend it on be something that's budgeted already for? So if we had a stormwater fix that we were going to do this next year, could we use that money for that stormwater fix?
There's nothing I read that restricts any kind of expenditures of these funds towards something that's already programmed or planned for.
Okay. I mean, obviously that gives us the ability to flex some of that money other places if we do use it. So I think those are options. It sounds like a ton of money, but once you start spending it, it's not that much money. But I hope we can do the best we can. I think we have some great ideas and thoughts from the people. I look forward to 5 o'clock.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember McParland.
It's difficult. You're talking $3 million here. If I say nothing to the workers, I'm the bad guy. I mean, but Sebastian, Dr. Coxer came up and talked about Sebastian's priorities. What are our top priority lists? And some of this money, we have the stormwater study that's being done. I know when that comes back in the pay, there's going to be a lot of things we're not going to be backing it. Is stormwater a problem for the city of Sebastian, or it's not a problem? I just want to, because if we're not going to put money towards that, then I don't want to hear that we care about the stormwater anymore. Because I've heard that as long as I've been up here. We're having the salary study done because it's difficult for everybody across the nation to hire people right now. I mean, it's kind of insane. And we're going to have to raise salaries at that point to accommodate, to have people who apply, who stay here. I mean, those things have to be done. I don't think that we have to decide tonight to spend that money because we have 2 big studies that are coming back. This money may help allocate some of those priorities. And I think we should look at that. I heard also about the mental health. I mean, one idea I've thought about for the money is what's called a population advocate who works in the community depending on what your problem is. If you have a problem with homelessness, if you have a problem with domestic violence victims, if you have a juvenile problem, that's somebody who can work out and go to that family, go to that individual, hook them right into services, especially for people with mental health. Law enforcement, they probably go to those houses 10, 15 times. If there was somebody who could follow up with that individual, and if they were ready to get help and break down the barriers and put them right to services, law enforcement would not be back out there or the situation getting worse. And they do have a population advocate down in Delray Beach, costs probably about $60,000, but Delray has a large homeless population. I know Dignity Village just got bought the other day. I had heard about that before. A lot of people are concerned about that, but I think they're going to run that program the right way. So it's just looking at that. So I think we have to definitely have the priority list and look at it. And just because it doesn't go towards premium pay doesn't mean that we don't care about the workers, but there's a lot of things that need to be done in this city. And especially over the next few years, a lot of grant items are not going to be there. Inflation's going up. Every project we do in the city now, 10 years ago, it cost probably half as much money. I mean, we can't even build a bathroom on the river for less than $200,000. I mean, that's kind of crazy. So that's it, but I love hearing what the ideas are for, you know, some concrete ideas that we could look at. Because this money, it's $3 million, and I think we have to look at our priorities and allocate it that way. Because if we do it that way, then when these studies come out, otherwise if we could have used it for that, that means we have to raise taxes. I guess the other way would only be divvy up all the property owners, put the 3.3 million, divide it individually, and send them a check, whatever that would be. I mean, there's no easy way to allocate this money. Somebody's going to be unhappy. You know, I remember months ago, I thought we were going to have the discussion, and it kind of went the other way, and there were ideas already. And so it was like the cat came out of the bag. How it got out, I don't know. And it's like, if you don't do it this way, then you don't like me. And that's not the case.
You done?
I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We do spend a lot of money on stormwater, so to say that we don't put money towards stormwater is kind of not exactly true. Just to make that clear. We spend a tremendous amount on stormwater, and we're doing this study, and we will be allocating funds. I think it's been clear that all of the council members up here are committed to making sure that we do that. So I appreciate everyone for bringing everything forward this afternoon. It was very enlightening, and we appreciate everyone for spending their time this afternoon to get here. And we are now adjourned.